Happy Monday, everybody in Year 5, and to all our wonderful readers. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend and are ready to get cracking again with another week of home learning. This week we are moving on to Floodland Chapter 3, and just to revise what we've done so far, we know at this point that Zoe has left Norwich, she's rowed across to Eels Island, and has been found by the likes of Doobie, Munchkin, Sarah and Molly, amongst others, as well as the old man William, who was the only person who remembers England before the sea took over. So that's where we are in our story. Just to revise Floodland as a whole and as a genre and what it's about. Floodland, as we know, is a children's thriller by English author Marcus Sedgwick. It was published in 2000, so that means it's 21 years old this year, and it tells the story of Zoe leaving Norwich as England is covered in water. She is desperate and alone, and among the marauding gangs and mobs, she manages to dig her derelict boat called Laika from the mud and escape Eel Island once again, where more danger lies. So at this point we're moving really forward with the plot and the story, and looking at how Zoe plans to leave Eels Island just as she had left Norwich before. So before we go and look at Chapter 3 in detail, we're going to first look at the vocabulary that we will encounter throughout the text. Now, I'm really looking forward to seeing all your actions on Seesaw. If you're brave enough to put up a video of you doing the actions, then please do. Remember, it's only us teachers that can see it, so it'd be great to see what actions you can generate around these words. Okay, so the first word we're going to encounter in Chapter 3 is foul. My turn, foul. Your turn? Excellent. Now, foul means very unpleasant to taste, to smell, or look at. So that means it is unpleasant to the senses. So taste, smell, and sight are all senses that we have, and foul means it is unpleasant to them. Now, a homophone, foul is a homophone, so it means there is more than one meaning for foul, or that we know of another word that is also foul. So if you play sport, you've probably quite often heard of the word foul. It is spelled correctly, but this is not what foul means in this case. Foul in this case means something that is unpleasant to the senses, like something that is unpleasant to taste. Maybe food was foul, there was an unpleasant smell, or something was foul to look at. So you can see in the boy, the picture, the boy is probably saying, what is that foul odor? Odor is a synonym of smell. So what is that foul odor? What is that unpleasant smell? So that is what foul means. Once again, my turn, foul. Your turn. Good. Right, next word. Our next word that we'll encounter is blow. Blow is actually another homophone, so it means that it has another meaning of blow, like to blow out your candles, but in this case it means a quick, hard hit by a fist or by a hard object. So you can see the man in this case has got a blow to his cheek. He has been punched in the cheek. Another example would be a hammer blow shattered the car's window. So a blow from a hammer hit the car's window and shattered the glass. It is a quick, hard blow by a hard object, or a quick, hard hit rather. Often we'd use the word punch or a blow as well. Punch to the face or a blow to the face. Now remember, it is not like blowing out your candles, it is a different meaning in this context. Alright, so our third word we're going to encounter is tilted. My turn, tilted. Your turn. Excellent. So tilted means to move to one side so that one side is higher than the other, or a synonym would be to tip. So you might tip something or you might tilt something. So the boy here is tilting his head. He is tilted to one side. He is perhaps curious or confused. Now, a word we had that was very like tilted was craned a couple of weeks ago. Now, craned is slightly more exaggerated. Craned is when you can't really see something, and it wouldn't mean the exact same thing as tilted. Tilted means something slightly different. It means just to move something so that one side is higher than the other. Two examples would be, he tilted the chair against the wall, so you might just lean the chair against the wall or tip the chair against the wall. Or the dog tilted its head in curiosity. You might often see a little puppy kind of lifting its head very slightly in curiosity. It's wondering what is going on around it. So tilted, my turn, your turn. Wonderful. Right, next word that we're going to look at is hurled. Now, hurled means to throw with force. So an example is, he hurled the ball at the wall, or he hurled the ball at the wicket in the cricket match. So when you're bowling in cricket, you would hurl the ball. It means you throw with a lot of force. Now again, there's another word we did that was quite similar to hurl a couple of weeks ago, and that was, can you think of it? Yeah, it was thrust. But thrust is quite different to hurled. So if you thrust something, you wouldn't be thrusting a ball, you normally hurl a ball. Both are done with force, but they are used in quite different contexts. My turn, hurled. Your turn. Good. Right, next word is uneasy. So uneasy quite simply means not comfortable or nervous. They are just synonyms. Uneasy is just a synonym of uncomfortable or nervous. So if you were the passengers on the plane were uneasy when the ride got bumpy. Maybe on your very first day of year 5 after coming back to school after a long time out of school, you might feel a little uneasy. You don't feel quite comfortable yet and you're a small bit nervous. So it's a really, really nice way to describe how someone is feeling, and you can see the man here in the suit, he's feeling quite uneasy. Maybe he has an important meeting, or maybe he doesn't like recording online and feels a little uneasy. Maybe he has a Zoom meeting that he doesn't feel comfortable about. So uneasy, your turn. Excellent. Okay, our next word is stitch. My turn, stitch. Your turn. Now you may not have heard of this word before. I know some of you have, but you've definitely probably all felt a stitch. A stitch is a sudden sharp muscle pain in your side. So you can see from the picture here, the man is running and he's after getting a stitch in his side. So in our story, Zoe ran until she had a stitch and then she needed a rest. So it's a sudden sharp pain that you get. So everybody will be able to grab their own side here and do an action for themselves of stitch. Now you wouldn't really get a stitch if you were just going for a short stroll or a short walk. A stitch normally occurs after some intense exercise. So if you were doing Miss Webster's dance lessons this half term, you may have got a stitch in your side, sharp muscle pain from all the exercise. So my turn, stitch. Your turn. Good. Okay, so we've two words left rather, and the next one is shuddered. My turn, shuddered. Your turn. Good. So you can see the woman here, she has shuddered. Not that she is shivering, as you wouldn't shudder with the cold. It means something slightly different. But the meaning of shuddered is to tremble or give a sudden shiver. So you wouldn't shiver with the cold, but you might give a sudden shiver, like something running down your spine or a tingle down your spine. So the woman here has shuddered. And also another example is the baby shuddered when she tasted a lemon. So lemons are quite sour, and if a baby is new to tasting a lemon, it might shudder, it might shake its face, it might give a little tremble of its body. So everybody, do the action of trembling with your body very quickly, and that means shuddered. Good. My turn, shuddered. Your turn. Good. And our final word is legible. Now you may have heard your teachers talking about legible handwriting, and legible means something that is able to be understood or read. So the example I have here is his handwriting is small but very legible. This means that we are able to read his handwriting despite it being small. Now, I'm often talking to Limerick about legible handwriting and improving their handwriting. I'm sure your teachers have too, and maybe your parents at home. That's really important to have legible handwriting. So legible simply means to be able to be understood or read. My turn, legible. Your turn. Great. I think we're ready to start chapter 3. So today I'm going to read, and then tomorrow we will do our paired reading, and then we'll read in unison as the week goes on, and you will take more responsibility over this reading text. So today you can just follow along with me. I will post the reading text also on the home learning, So if you want to open that up and follow it on that, that's fine, or you can just follow this video alongside me. So off we go. Chapter 3. Zoe ate some foul food. She slept that night on a narrow wooden pew. She had no sheets and had to use a mouldy hassock as a pillow, but she slept long and deep. Now pew is just the bench that would be in a church, and a mouldy hassock is something that was supposed to be a pillow, but was quite tattered and destroyed. She dreamed a strange mix of dreams. She was in a small boat, far out to sea. Her mother and father were there too, and Doobie, and Natasha, who suddenly stood up and rocked the boat from side to side. Zoe screamed at her to stop, but the boat tipped and they all fell into the huge freezing ocean, so she's in the middle of a nightmare here. She woke, feeling a pain in her ribs, as though someone was kicking her. Someone was kicking her. "Get up," said Spat. "I want to talk to you." He gave Zoe another prod or a poke in the ribs with his boot. "Stop it," yelled Zoe, sliding off the pew. "What do you think?" "Listen to me. I know you're a spy. I don't know where you're from, but you haven't fooled me, even if Doobie thinks you're... Look, I told you, I don't know anything about cats or pigs. You know their names all right, don't you?" "Only because you told them to me." Spat was looking like he meant trouble. He stepped up to Zoe's face. "Don't be smart, you ain't so clever. If you think you can get in his good books and think again. I'm Doobie's ears and eyes around here, so don't you get any ideas." So what Spat is saying here is that he looks out for Doobie and he's the one that reports back to him with any information. "Hey, don't worry. I don't want to be anybody's nose wiper." Spat hit her hard in the stomach. Zoe hadn't been ready and went down easily. She crawled away, but Spat advanced. "You little..." Zoe had done her share of looking out for herself in Norwich, but she'd never really been much of a fighter. Spat went to kick her again, but Zoe swung her legs and knocked Spat's standing foot from under him. He fell. This gave Zoe time to get up, but by the time she had, Spat was already coming at her again. Surprised, Zoe leapt backwards. "Stop!" she shouted. But Spat was so clearly in no mood to stop. He swung a fist and Zoe leant to one side. The blow caught her. Can you think of what blow means? Yeah, so he's punched her here, but only just. It was enough to send her to the floor again, and then Spat was on her legs, pinning her arms to the hard floor, and his hands tightening around Zoe's throat. She tried to struggle, but she was just too weak from her sea crossing. At the back of her mind was a desire to give up. It was such a struggle anyway these days. Suddenly, Spat flew backwards off Zoe's chest. Zoe tilted her head back to see Doobie looking at her upside down. Doobie nodded at Zoe and then away, indicating that she should make herself scarce. Zoe hobbled off, feeling the bruises already rising on her neck. And as she went, she heard Doobie approach Spat. "I told you to keep your hands off her." So at this point, Doobie has come to Zoe's rescue and made sure Spat is not hurting her anymore. So she has been made herself scarce. She has been told to leave. "Look, I'm sorry, Doobie, but she's a spy. I'm sure of it." He didn't have time to finish his sentence. Zoe looked back, seeing Spat being hurled across the floor again. So what do you think has happened to Spat here based on the word hurled? Yeah, so Doobie has thrown Spat across the floor. Doobie wasn't large by any means, and really he was pretty thin. He clearly knew some hideous ways of fighting, or some terrible ways of fighting, or some awful ways of fighting. Zoe saw her chance. She hadn't got any food to take, but she wasn't going to hang around. It was time to find her way back to Laika and get away. She crept down, the length of the nave, trying not to be seen. Into her mind came her dream. She was convinced she was right about Natasha. Her subconscious was telling her so, rocking the boat and drowning them. And Doobie, laughing at it all again, even as he went under. So she's thinking back to her dream again here. And her parents had just sat there, silently, and let it happen, while Zoe screamed at Natasha to sit down. They hadn't even tried to help her. Zoe reached the great front gates of the cathedral. She wasn't sure if the gatekeepers would let her past, but she nodded at them and they made no move to stop her. They seemed not to care that she was there. She passed them and was in the open-ended porch that led away from the gates. It was dark, despite the wall of daylight facing her. Strange carvings were crumbling away on the pillars either side of her. They disturbed her slightly, and she hurried on. She was about to step out of the porch when a voice spoke to her. "Good morning, Zoe." It was William, the old man Doobie had pointed out when she'd arrived. He was sitting in the darkness of the porch. Zoe was unsure what to do. How do you know my name? She asked suspiciously. He laughed. They're all talking about you, he said. Who? He nodded back through the doorway. Everyone. No one could understand why you're not dead. Zoe started to feel the fear coming at her again. Doobie seems? Well, yes, Doobie, said William. There was an uneasy silence for a while. Stupidly, Zoe felt embarrassed. She stood thinking of something to say so that she could get away. The old man didn't seem as mad as Doobie had said. She'd have to be careful. So where are you going then, Zoe? Nowhere, she said hurriedly. I was just going for a walk, and anyway, you know, it smells in. No, I mean, where are you going? Where did you come from? That sort of thing. Oh well, you know, I'm happy to be an eel. That's fine. If Doobie says so, you know, then... She trailed off. But I came from Norwich. Norwich stands trembling on the brink, said William, as if it made sense. All right, said Zoe. Or is that on the blink? I can never remember. Pardon, said Zoe. If you do decide to leave, said William. Zoe froze, trying to think of some lie to cover her intentions, but the old man went on. So at this point Zoe is afraid that William has worked out that she's trying to escape. Then don't try to fly, will you? There was this monk, see, who built a pair of wings. His name was Brother Elmer. This is 1,000 years ago, I'm talking. He built some wings like a bird. He thought he could fly. Well, he jumped off the tower, see? Stupidly, Zoe asked, What happened? Well, he died, didn't he? Off you go then. What? Zoe asked. Doobie was right. The old man was crazy after all. I said, off you go, on your walk. Zoe hesitated. Right, thanks, she said. Bye. He didn't reply. She crept slowly out of the porch. As she went, she heard him start talking to himself. Zoe got to the corner of the porch, and then she ran till she had a stitch. What does stitch mean? Yeah, a sharp, sudden pain in the side of your muscles. It was a cool, misty morning. She thought she knew where she was going, but in running had lost her way. Still, the island was small. It wouldn't take her long to find Laika. All around was the smell of wetness. Sorry, I'm going to have to start that again. I'm going to self-correct myself. All around was the smell of wetness, but Zoe was used to that. Even though Norwich was much larger than this place, nowhere escaped the occasional, especially high floods. At least they had enough high ground to grow some vegetables there, though. There was nothing here, just the shells of old houses standing at or in the water's edge. But again, Zoe was well used to that. Sometimes she wondered what life had been like before the sea came. Perhaps it hadn't seemed stupid to build so close to the sea, because perhaps the sea had been a lot further away. She didn't know, and she had never ever met anyone who'd been alive when the houses were built, though lots of people could remember when there had been much more land. Her parents had grown up in a different world, but a world that was already in trouble. Even the sea level was rising. They never liked to talk about it much. Whenever she did manage to get something out of them, the old times, they went quiet for a while afterwards. Zoe had never known those times, though the really serious flooding only started when she was a little girl. She checked around to see that no one was coming after her, then started to walk around the land. She noted the white posts rising from the sea. They had those in Norwich too, marking the sea level, keeping an eye on its latest high tide. She shuddered, so a cold shiver quickly ran down her back at this point. She'd been right to leave Norwich. There was a limited time left that it could survive. Same as this place. She'd just have to take a boat and get away. She knew there was land to the west. Lots of it. It was where most people had headed when the sea came. But that was long ago, and now there were no ships left on Norwich, nor anyone who would have known how to steer them. The stupid, stubborn few who'd have stayed had slowly turned into people like those in the cathedral, scrabbling around for wild food or doing a few hours at the allotments to earn something in return. If you were lucky, you might find an old store of food in tins. The labels were never legible, so which means you could never read the labels. They weren't legible, if they were there at all. But what was inside was usually still good, except Zoe still remembered something she knew who'd eaten from a tin, and that had gone bad. It was a risk you had to take. She knew that she probably didn't have much time. Someone would come looking for her soon, but her luck was in. After only 5 minutes, she suddenly recognized where she was. It was the spot where Doobie, Munchkin and Spat had jumped her. She knew her way to get to the boat more easily now. She found the place the boat had gone. Instantly, she realised why the gatekeepers hadn't stopped her. She knew who had her boat, and she realised too why Molly and Sarah hadn't let them out of her sight since the day before. She felt angry, stupid too. The sea was all around her. Her boat was gone. There was nowhere to go. She was trapped. Okay, so that's chapter 3, and we'll look at that in more detail with our questions tomorrow. Now, our activity for today, as always on the first day of reading, is to do our vocabulary. So, as always, we're going to look at some definitions and the words to match. So I'm going to look at the first one. Able to be understood or read. I'm going to do this one, and then you're going to go off and do the rest on your own very shortly. So I know it can't be foul, because foul means something that is unpleasant to the senses. That doesn't make sense. A blow, I know, is a punch. Tilted is when you slightly raise something so one side is higher than the other. Again, doesn't make sense. Hurled means to throw with force. Uneasy is a synonym for uncomfortable. Stitch is the sharp sudden pain we get in our side. Shuddered is like a shiver. And finally, legible. Legible means something that is able to be understood easily or read easily, which in this case, after process of elimination, looking at each word and revising what they mean, I know that able to be understood or read must be legible. So I'm going to write in legible. Okay. In a few minutes, you're going to do the remaining 7 ones before you go on and do the filling in the blanks. So pause the video here and fill in these vocabulary activities. Okay, welcome back. I hope you've all unpaused and are ready to move on with our sentences. So at this point, I have all my vocabulary. I'm familiar with it. I now just need to apply it into these sentences. So once again, I'm going to do the first one and you are going to then do the rest. So the first one is, the student had beautiful and something handwriting. Now, when we're talking about writing, we need to be able to read it, and I know that legible, again, works in this context. So the student had beautiful and legible handwriting. So your job now is to do number 10 to 16, checking back your work. Does it make sense? Does it match the vocabulary from earlier? And we are then going to take our fix in a few minutes. So take maybe 10 minutes to do this, do it properly, check your work, and then come back with a pen or a highlighter ready to mark your work. Okay, excellent. We're going to mark this whole page together now. So pen in hand. I know all our teachers and your teachers want you to be marking so that we can see it on Seesaw, all the hard work you're doing. Right, so the first one, I've done legible. The second one then, a quick hard hit by the fist or by a hard object. That one was blow. So well done if you got that. Number 3, uneasy means to be uncomfortable or nervous. So if you wrote something similar to that, you can give yourself a tick. If not, just fix it so you learn from your mistake. Okay, number 4, hurled. Hurled means to throw with force. So as long as you wrote something very similar to that, you may give yourself your tick. Number 5, to move so that one side is higher than the other. Now I know that is tilt, or in the past tense, tilted. Stitch, I know, is a sharp, sudden pain in your side, to the side of your stomach normally. So take or fix that one as long as you wrote something quite similar. To tremble or give a sudden shiver is shuddered. You can nearly hear the tremble as you say shuddered. And number 8, very unpleasant to taste, smell or look at, or something that's unpleasant to our senses, is foul. Remember, a homophone, that is. Okay, so pause the video here if you need an extra couple of seconds to tick or fix your work. Otherwise, we're going to move on and look at the sentences. Okay, so number 9, I did this one with you again. The student had beautiful and legible handwriting. So well done, you may give yourself a tick for that one already. Number 10, the cricket player hurled the ball at the wicket. So he threw the ball with force at the wicket. The wicket is the little sticks behind the batter in cricket. Number 11, I shuddered at the thought of having to get up at 5 a.m. So I really didn't like the idea of getting up at 5 a.m, so I gave a little shiver at the thought of having to do that. Number 12, the child tilted his chair back and nearly fell over. Number 13, after running a 5k, I had an awful stitch. So after running 5 kilometers, I had a pain in my side, or a stitch as it's known. Number 14, I felt uneasy on my very first day at school. Number 15, there was a foul smell from the microwave after the food had been heated, so there was a nasty or unpleasant smell. And number 16, the boy took a blow to the face in the rugby match. So maybe he took a punch to the face, or maybe someone just hit him by accident in the face, but nonetheless, he was hit in the face, which we can also call a blow. Okay, so pause the video here if you need an extra couple of seconds to tick or fix your work. Otherwise, please post your vocab activity on Seesaw, all marked so we can see how well you did today. Tomorrow we'll move on and do some paired reading and look at some questions to delve into chapter 3 a little more. But until then, have a fantastic Monday, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye!